Planes were used mostly in conjunction with cameras and made their greatest wartime contribution as reconnaissance craft. One of the earliest reconnaissance planes used during World War I was the Blériot, a single-wing, one-man plane with a 50-horsepower engine. The entire plane weighed around 800 pounds and had no weapons. Many early reconnaissance pilots were ex-cavalry, who no longer had as significant a role to play on the ground.
They began taking rifles, pistols, up to shoot at one another, and began taking hand grenades, small bombs, artillery shells, even rocks to drop on people on the ground, just because they were aggressive. This led ultimately to the development of specialized fighting aircraft, some intended as bombers, others intended as fighters. The goal of the fighters was always to shoot down the reconnaissance aircraft.
The challenge for a pilot was how to shoot at a target without damaging his own plane. A machine gun right in front of the pilot provided easy aim down the nose of the plane, but resulted in a shot-off propeller. Side-mounted guns were another option, but they could be awkward and hard to aim. Finally, Dutch inventor Tony Fokker figured out a way to aim a gun down the nose and have it shoot through the path of the propeller without actually hitting the blades. The best solution is called an interrupter gear. As the propeller swings across the gun, it interrupts the machine gun from firing until the propeller passes, and it fires again. Fokker figured out a method that used a mechanical lever. When the propeller spun across it, the gun stopped firing. The first true combat aircraft using Fokker's interrupter gear was the German Fokker-Eindecker, a lightweight single-wing aircraft capable of speeds approaching 85 miles per hour.
Pursuit aircraft is what they call them. The pursuit aircraft, all you got to do is swing your airplane toward the enemy and fire the machine gun. Now, this sounds romantic, but basically this is murder. What you're trying to do is sneak up on an enemy while they're busy taking pictures and shoot him in the back with your machine gun.
The men in the trenches grew familiar with the buzz of aircraft flying above the front.
You see them up there fighting? Never fun for people shooting each other, but such as it was a show of its own, like a bullfight in Mexico, I guess.
Dogfights created a demand for stronger, lighter, faster aircraft. Engineers looked to save an ounce of weight on an aircraft that was mostly canvas and wood.
The wings, for instance, on a lot of them are hollowed out pieces of wood, and they would hollow out all the wooden frame members they could just to make them as light as they could. And you look at it initially and you think they're only saving ounces, but over the entire aircraft they're saving several pounds, maybe even hundreds of pounds by the time it's all done.
Plane engines also went through a swift evolution as pilots pushed their machines to heights approaching 25,000 feet.
Just taking the engine from an 80-power engine that spins around and around and around to a huge 400 horsepower engine with 12 cylinders popping up and down inside, this is a major achievement.
One of the most famous fighters was the Sopwith Camel, named for the slight hump visible near the cockpit. It had a 130 horsepower rotary engine with cylinders arranged in a circle rather than the more familiar straight line. Both the propeller blades and the engine rotated around the shaft of the propeller.
This cooled the engine, but it created a tremendous gyroscope force. So the plane was enormously maneuverable if you turned in the direction of the spin of the engine. If you tried to turn the other way, it didn't do very well. But if you were a superb pilot, it was extraordinarily maneuverable. It needed to be because the German army had come up with what was probably the best aircraft